Hey,
Hey,
hey, welcome to
hey
Focus and
guys.
Fast with the Busy Boss Mamas. I'm Stephanie Mitchell and
And
my sissy.
I'm Crystal Borgeson.
And today we have on our good friend Lindsay Kozitsa. We are super, super excited to have her on to share some goodness. Hey,
Yes.
Lynn.
Sh- Yeah,
So
introduce yourself.
Hey,
let me give a quick intro
Oh,
of
okay.
Lindsay, and then she can, because I have to talk you up for just a second.
all right.
Lindsay is awesome. So Lindsay is a mom of 12 kiddos, homeschooling mom living in the Pacific Northwest up in Washington. And what city do you live in, Linz? Where is that place you live?
We are in Allen.
Allen. And that's by the sound, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
we're right
really
next to
close
the
to the
sound. My
sound.
house is literally less than a mile from the water.
Yeah, you
Cool.
can hear the seals when you're at her house.
Right. You can hear the seals from your amazing property. That's super fun. Awesome. So anyway, so Lindsay has 12 kids. She is amazing. And I think that a lot of people, when they think of like big families, are like, oh, that must be a hot mess. But Lindsay, like, she just knows how to do life so well.
Yeah. She's that mom that other moms are looking up to and they're like, I just can't get my stuff together. What are you doing?
Yeah, she is like, I don't know what you would call it. Just one of those moms that's like, I don't know, an advice mom. What do you call those moms?
I don't know. They're the moms that take you under your wing and you can learn so much from, and so valuable. So valuable. I know as a young mom, so any of you young moms out there, like, find a Lindsay, find somebody who you can learn from, and is an older mom. I mean, Lindsay's not even old, but she's experienced. Very experienced with raising a family, and she does an incredible job. I mean, I know a lot of people think of like big families and they're like, that not just a hot mess, but like unruly household, loud kids, just a disaster and whatnot. And I don't even know if you would go to your house, Linz, and think that you had 12 kids living there.
No, Lindsay's
Like,
house
There are
is
days.
just so like,
it's
I don't
cute.
know. I don't know of anybody who can keep their shit together like Lindsay can.
Yeah, I know. And it's not like she's got some abnormal kids, because I know a lot of moms want to be like, well, you just don't have any hard kids. No, she's got an array of children of her own. And so she's got a vast experience with it.
Yeah, not only that, um, she has worked outside the home and inside the home alongside homeschooling lots of children.
Yeah.
And in the midst of like them having babies at that time or being pregnant at that time. So all the things. So she has just to run the gamut of all the things that would keep a mom busy. So she's like the epitome of a busy boss mom, I feel like. And so we
Yes.
thought it would be super valuable to have her on here to share some of her gems of keeping it together and how she is able to run her household. So Lynn's, what do you want people to know about you besides that intro?
Um, I lose my cool, just like everybody else. Um, my kids are not, like Crystal was saying, my kids are not crazy, abnormally easy. I have some very difficult children. There's nothing busier than having teenagers and toddlers. And the hardest years are when you have a bunch of littles and none of them are really capable of helping,
I would
or
agree with that.
even that like 7, 8 year old. What was
Yeah.
that?
I said I would totally agree with that.
That's the hardest time frame. Even like my teenagers go off and my middles go off, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. Like, I don't know how to handle this. So I want to give encouragement to those moms who have just littles. It does get
Yeah,
better. It
it
doesn't mean
does
it
get better.
gets, it doesn't mean less work, but it does get easier.
Right.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Not less work, but still You're not having to wipe everybody's butt.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When kids get a little bit more independent, obviously it changes the dynamic. I feel like the dynamic changes, and it's hard in different ways as the kids get different ages. Like teenagers are super fun and super hard at the same time. And little kids the same. Like little kids are way more endearing than big kids, but there's so much work.
They have
So
to, or nobody would do it.
That's true. I
true.
look at my youngest all the time and I'm like, I love the baby every single time so much, just so I don't get rid of him. Like, it's true. When you're up for night after night after night after night, you start to like look at them and be like, if they weren't so cute, would you keep them? If you didn't have that emotional connection, you'd be like, gosh, go to sleep already.
Yeah. So
something I wanted, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Something I wanted to mention was I think a lot of how we run our households has a lot to do with our temperaments. And I don't mean like the 4 temperaments. I mean more like the Myers-Briggs, the cognitive functions. And I think it's super important to understand where you're at and what you need as a person for your introverted time, right? And I say that in a very modern sense, not in the sense of what it actually is for introversion, extroversion. That's a whole different story. But we all need that alone time there. And I think how we run our households needs to be based on that, as well as, right, what we need for our spiritual life and those kind of things. That's how I keep my stuff together.
Yeah.
Is understanding sometimes I gotta like, I have to check out. I will close my door and be like, you guys are responsible for keeping each other happy. That's not my job. Just like, if anybody's bleeding, come let me know.
Right. That was actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. And I was going to ask it later, but let's just talk about it now. So let's talk about filling your own cup, because that's one thing. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? And as moms, we do have to do all the things and give all the time. But how do you, with such a busy home, what do you do to fill your cup?
Without going into like too much detail, and make this about just spirituality, it is partly about that. A lot of it's about that, right? I get up, I have some very basic prayers I say in the morning, and that's how I start my day. I am saying prayers before my feet hit the ground in the morning. And I make sure I get up in the morning, and I try to get up before my kids and make space for the time to be alone. It doesn't always happen. And sometimes you got to learn to let that go, right? Like you get up and 10 minutes later, all your kids are up and you're like, can we do a do-over to that morning? That's not okay. But learning that on that day, that means I'm going to need some time to myself later. And that might mean I have to go lock myself in my van. I might have to go for a drive or just go walk around my property by myself for a while so that no one can bug me. That's a big part of my, like, I need to sometimes just straight up check out. And it's very important to be a good mom, to understand that it's not my job to keep my kids happy all the time. I have to do the self-care. And some of the rest of that is making sure I spend time with friends and making sure I do things that make me feel important as a person, not just the mundane tasks of every day, which are the most important, but things like doing this podcast with you guys, going out on a coffee date with a friend, even if that means having an uninterrupted phone conversation with coffee because we live states apart. Like those things are the things that fill me up.
Well, yeah, that's awesome that you. And would you also say that people have to decide for themselves what fills them up? Because for some people, I think some people maybe, like I rejuvenate like you do in the morning by myself. I find like those similar things, but some people, I think they do better if they, you know, if they recharge around lots of people or.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe finding that.
I have a question on that.
That's why I think thing is sorry, that's why I think the temperament thing is so important to understand, because I think it'll help people realize what they need.
Yeah. Because Netflix, I don't think Netflix, a lot of people go to Netflix and like Facebook or TikTok or whatever the social media stuff, and they're on there for all of their like little tiny moments of free time. And I don't think that's serving the motherhood well in general.
I agree with that. I think like checking out in that way is not like fulfilling, I guess.
No, you're
It's
not
not helping you.
rejuvenating.
Yeah, you're not rejuvenating. You're not like recharging your batteries, or, you know, I don't know, helping yourself emotionally and spiritually by doing that. So one thing you said, Lindsay, about like, I'm huge on waking up before the kids too. And if I wake up before the kids and the kids wake up, it tends to really like spoil, like it's a bad start for the day for me. So just like what you said, but you said you have to be flexible with that. So how do you, like, I guess, center your mind and stay in a positive space when you're like, that's my morning time and dang it, the kids just screwed it up? Like, is it just a matter of being like, okay, I know that I'm just going to make sure to get that time later? Or how do you suggest not allowing it to like start your day off in a really negative energy, as you know, the way you treat your kids and everything?
It's a conscious, I have to step back and think before I speak with everything in relation to the kids. And sometimes that means choosing not to respond to them. Sometimes they'll ask me a question and it may seem to an outsider like I'm giving them the silent treatment. But I'm just giving myself time to process. You don't always have to respond immediately. If you feel like you're going to jump at them or be negative, it's better to just take a minute and be like, if your kids are still demanding, I heard you, I'm not ready to respond, and leave it at
Yeah, I
that.
like that.
And come back
That's a
to
good
it
reminder.
if it's needed.
I think a lot of modern parenting things insist, and I'm you know, I like attachment parenting and stuff, but I think some of those methods neglect exactly what you said, where it's all about the child and everything's about the child, and the child's absolute happiness has to 100% come from you. I like that you said that you mentioned that it's okay to just be like, I need to gather myself because I'm not going to respond well. And also, I was going to ask you, what about, you know, when you're talking about going and taking the time by yourself, how did you do that when you had just the littles? Like, how did you manage to slink away, like in the afternoon? Because I'm sure that that's a time, you know, if all the little kids come up and you didn't have any of your older ones at that time, how did you find the time then?
Ultimately, that depends on other people being present in your life that can take them. So for a mom who, let's say, doesn't have a husband that's supportive of that and is, you know, she's doing everything herself, it's almost impossible. It's not impossible, but you've got to get really creative with your situation and figure out time slots of forcing the kids to take naps or forcing them to take a quiet time or succumbing to that. I know a lot of people don't love putting movies on for their kids, but putting a movie on for them so you can go watch a movie yourself. And sometimes that checking out mentally does have to be over social media, even though it's not really a recharging. It's at least not as draining as constantly being present for your people. So sometimes in those seasons, you just have to get creative with how to make that work. Sometimes it means hiring a babysitter or asking a local other mom, hey, can we swap? You know, so that each of you can go recharge and do stuff together. Things like that.
Yeah, I think that
It's been a long time since I've
yeah. I think that kind of makes me think of one thing that I think is super important for moms is the mom guilt thing. Like, especially for moms who are into attachment parenting, we tend to feel like, oh, this is a superior way of parenting, and like I'm doing such a great thing for my child. And so then you feel like crap if like, oh my gosh, I'm not like, you know, always there cuddling my toddler when they're napping, or I don't ever want to let them have screen time or this and that. And oh my gosh, if I let my 3-year-old like play on a tablet, I'm totally ruining them for the rest of their life, and I'm going to cause ADD and all this stuff that like you're allowing that mom guilt to like take you over so much that you're not allowing yourself to do what you need for your own mental health. I mean, I'm not saying always throw your kid in front of a screen, but there's no perfect parenting way. And it's not the end of the world
No.
if you, I mean, I always struggle with things being like, oh, that's not the right way. Like, I need to do it the right way. I'll convince myself that this certain way is the right way, and then feel so bad about myself if I'm not doing it in that way. And I think the older I've gotten as a mom and seeing, especially like seeing, you know, you guys and my other friends and how we've known each other for so long, and seeing the way that each of us, our parenting has changed over the years, and realizing like, whoa, there's a lot of different styles of parenting that moms do. And when you look at them as they get older, like they all work. It's all going to be okay. You know? So how do
Well, all the
you,
kids have different.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
A parent's
Yeah.
parent in a certain way. They have a certain temperament, and the kids respond in certain ways because they have that temperament. So it works with one family, doesn't necessarily work for another. But in the end,
Right.
we're all just trying to do the best.
Yeah. I think as long as you're really striving and you're continuing and you love your child enough to keep trying and to keep going forward with it, your parenting should grow. You should not be the same parent that you are as a starting out parent anyway. If you are, you're not growing as a person, you're not growing as a mom. So it's okay. But I think as long as you're doing what you said, that we're all just loving them, and not every technique works for every family and for every kid. Sometimes different techniques work for certain kids. Like you got one kid who doesn't care, and then you get the really sensitive one who's like, you know, you look at them sideways or talking in a firm voice, and they're like on the floor in tears, drying you, "I'm so sorry," and "I'm the worst person in the world" letters. Well, your other kid is like mean gesturing you.
That's so true. It's so true. So with such a busy house, like, and so many moving parts all the time, how do you keep up with all the things?
How do you keep your house clean?
Simplify. Okay. I'll say it again. Simplify. So people go crazy with like chore charts and cleaning charts, and I've got to make it fair, so we've got to move it around, and we've got to make sure we switch things. And I've fallen into that trap too. And I'm like, to heck with this. This is retarded. So I now do things seasonally. I'm not at the 1 year mark yet. I know somebody who does it on a yearly basis, and I'm like, but then you're not teaching the other kids how to do the jobs. So I don't know. I'm not that lax with it, but we have a chore chart. Everybody's responsible for stuff. The kids have laundry days. Simplify the laundry, right? Best YouTube video I've ever watched has saved me 80% of my time doing laundry. And literally, kid has a basket. That basket goes in the washer. Their stuff doesn't get mixed up with other people's. It goes in the dryer, and they go put it away in bins, which they don't have to fold their laundry either. Like, just learning to let go of the things of like folding the laundry, having to wash your colors versus your, you know, your lights and your darks.
She's
just
talking to me and
trying to
Steph
buy
right
stuff
now.
that can be washed. I love you both, but your crazy laundry routines drive me crazy. Like, simplify it. So
Yes,
much better.
I am happy to let you know that I have simplified my laundry much. I told the kids, like, well, I haven't gotten it down as well as you have with each kid only having one basket. It's like 2 kids that share a room have the same basket. And I was like, just go dump your whole hamper in there. Like, it's okay. You don't need to sort it out. Just dump it in there. But then you know what happened? I bought a new washing machine. It wasn't cheap. I bought a new washing machine. It was like, I don't know, a really expensive washing machine. And like a week after I got the washing machine, Eli, how old? 11, dumped it in there. And guess what? There was one of those Contigo coffee mugs in there, and it got like stuck on the bottom and rattled around and broke my washing machine like a week after he got it.
Just so you know, mugs ruin the washing machine.
I was like, you can't, like, I guess you can't just dump the whole thing in there. You have to like take the clothes out. But still, yes, I loved that video that you sent me about that laundry. Do you know what it was called? We should somehow link it somewhere. That video.
I'll link it. I'll link it below in the bottom of the.
Okay, do it. And doesn't that mom have 12 kids or something, or 10 kids, or?
Not like she had, I think, like 14 at the time. Cause she's this mom. She's like, I'd reduce my laundry time by 80%. And I'm like, yeah, what do you have? Like 2 kids? And she's like, and I'm a mom of like 14. And I'm like,
oh, my lady.
Listen to this one.
Yeah. And it was really awesome that your husband like made you all a cool like setup for it to work. Great. I need to get that squared away. But you're right. The laundry folding was a big deal for me of like, but I want them to learn how to fold their laundry. And now you're right. The more you can simplify, I think that like looking at all the things that you're crazy about in your mind, like around the house, and being like, okay, how important is this really?
Yeah. Once again, kind of in certain areas, letting perfectionism go.
Absolutely. I feel like that can cross over into so many areas, right? So another great way to simplify it is just follow other moms who do stuff really well. Like there's a couple different cleaning routines where they give you lists, or you can buy their lists and you do one little thing every day. So you don't have to come up with it on your own. You know, we don't have to invent the wheel. It's okay. Other moms have already done that, and following those moms and supporting each other is a huge part in running our households.
Sorry, I'm taking notes on what you're saying so I can.
One thing that I've noticed, and I don't get to see you as much as I want to, but when you've come to visit me and when I've gone there, one thing I've noticed is how much you allow your kids to do on their own. Like just allowing them to like figure out how to do things. Like she brought her family, like, did you bring them all when we painted?
Yeah, it was me and 12.
You and yes, you brought them all. And her older girls like painted my house. Like they painted like 2 rooms in my house. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you just let your kids take a paintbrush and just go to town. And they did a phenomenal job. And it's because you let them do stuff. And when we're there and the boys are out there like chopping wood and doing all the things, and you're just give them those things, like that's how they learn. And I think sometimes we want a helicopter and be like, oh, they're gonna chop their arm off. Or I think kids are probably a little bit more what's the word? Capable than what we want to give them credit for.
I went over to her house when she moved into her house and pulled up to see her boys, and they're being like, we need some shelves in our room. So they're just out there building shelves. Out there building shelves. And they're not like 16-year-old boys. How old is your oldest? I don't know if you want me to say his name, so I won't.
It's fine. Gus is 14.
Yeah.
And my oldest is almost 18. So the 2 girls, but the oldest boy is 14, 15 in April.
And then
we train him young.
Yeah. And he was like, I think
so Steph was talking about the girls painting at her house. And that's, what's our goal as a parent? Our goal as a parent is to raise our kids to be independent and to move out and do things on their own. So we start that process really young. I expect my kids, if they want their room painted, guess what? Sure, I'll help you and I'll show you how to do it. But then I expect you to do it. And I also expect you to clean up your mistakes. And I feel like it's just good. It's good life training skills because I don't expect them to do perfection. You can't be perfect at something without having worked on it a lot. But I do expect them to clean up their mistakes to where it's a decent job. And they have had to learn, oh, maybe I shouldn't put that much paint on my paintbrush. Maybe I should put less so I don't make this big drip that I'm now going to have to clean up, or possibly even scrape off of something. And with the power tools, we supervise them until they're competent enough that we know they're not going to hurt themselves or their siblings. And yeah, my boys know how to build cubbies. They built themselves their cubbies for their bins for their clothes. They took an old shed that we have and built new walls and built themselves furniture for inside of it, like a little table and bench set.
Wow.
And their younger sister helped. Yeah. So their younger sister, who's 10, also helped. So they start training the younger kids and it gets easier because you train the older ones, they start training the younger ones, and they love doing stuff like that together. And it's such good relationship and social skills building as well for them. So that's part of why we let them do that.
Yeah,
And we're kind of lazy. I like stuff.
It's too much to do when it's you and your spouse is at work, and even when he's only there in the evenings on the weekend. And here in Washington, man, it's dark at freaking 4:00. So they're coming home in the dark, going to work in the dark. So they can't do anything. You do have to have the kids doing stuff. And we talked about this before we started the podcast, because I've seen Lindsay's kids work and talked to her about it a lot. I just let my kids paint the bathroom a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, they did a pretty good job. I mean, it's not the best, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought. It's not like splotched all over the ceiling. They cleaned up where they dripped it everywhere. I was impressed. So thank you, Lindsay. I've learned a bunch from the.
I have to say that still terrifies me so much. I'm like imagining my boys painting and what it would look like.
Well, and
But
okay, but your boys could take
right.
and build it.
Huh?
Yeah, but your boys could take apart an engine and rebuild it, and mine couldn't. So
That's true. And they do that. They do that. So
yeah, and they have no training on that either. They're just
but
like,
you do it.
"Oh, look, I know how
You
this
do it in
goes."
your own way.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So so obviously, like, so part of that, like looking at a very dynamic, busy household, you have your kids helping a lot. And homeschooling, I imagine, I know that you're not like, there's I mean, whoever's listening to this, if you're a homeschooler, you probably know there's a bajillion different methods of homeschooling. If you're not a homeschooler, you probably have no clue that there's a whole bunch of different methods of homeschooling, right? There's some people who are like very much like textbook, we're doing school at home. And then there's all the way at the other end of like, we don't school, the kids just learn by life. You're a mixture of both, right? Like not super textbooky, but you're not a straight unschooler either. But I think there's something to be said. Very Charlotte Mason, is that what you said?
I would consider us very Charlotte Mason, mix of Montessori, a mix of like that traditional classical education, which is also Charlotte Mason. Just Charlotte Mason simplifies it. But we also do some stuff online just because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to teach the kids math. And I have some kids who really struggle with reading. And so I have to outsource some things for like dyslexia programs. We don't have to do everything ourselves. And that kind of homeschooling ideal envelops our entire parenting. I have more of a homeschooling style within my parenting than I do a parenting style. I don't know if that makes sense.
It totally does.
Yeah.
It totally does. And you do a really good job, I feel like, of, yes, you incorporate those schooly things where you feel like you need to, but your kids very much learn life. Like their life is learning. And
Absolutely.
I think they are functioning people for sure.
I think that is something that you do really, really well at, is like your kids are going to be very well equipped for life. And ultimately that's what we're looking for. Like I would way rather have my kids know how to do a lot of the things that your kids are learning and know how to do than be like, you know, be able to ace a test, you know, like really well. So, which I know your kids can do both.
Some of them are more naturally gifted with the hands-on stuff, and there's a couple that can't do the life stuff, and they do the learning and the testing really well. So the kids are all different too, and so not any one of my kids is going to turn out exactly like the other, and I have both ends of that complete spectrum and within my household. So yeah, that's a thing. So don't let people beat themselves up because their kids aren't learning the life things. Sometimes they're just going to have to do it when it's important to them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Good to remember that we're raising people, not just kids. Like they're going to become people. Yes. And I think Lindsay kind of pretty much has said that throughout her whole technique is that she is very aware she's raising people who are going to go out and they're going to have to fend for themselves. So they better learn how to fend. And she does a great job of guiding them through that. Right.
What would you say are some of the most helpful habits that you've developed in your momming to like help you keep it together, keep your sanity?
In regards to cleaning, in regards to self-care, because we already kind of talked about self-care a little bit.
Anything, just like
maybe the juggling, time juggling is a big thing.
Time juggling.
Like, because she's got lots of stuff. Your kids are doing things. Like, how do you juggle just all of it? Like all the stuff that's going on, so many moving parts.
It's so hard sometimes because you really just want to be like, I just want to eat my stinking Pirates booty or popcorn and just sit there and watch shows all day, and you can't. There are times for that. But you just can't. You have to get up and force yourself to do the stuff because in the end, you know, you're better off mentally at the end of the day. The kids are better off, and the happiness of the household overall. Not necessarily the happiness, the joy, right? Because people can be sad and still joyful internally. It's true, right? We can be joyful and yet still struggling and having a hard time, but understanding this is a season and it's short-lived and everything changes. And knowing that just because this moment is hard doesn't mean there aren't going to be happy moments again. And remembering that and going, it's okay. I can do this hard thing because it's only going to take me, half an hour. And then I can go chill out and give myself a break for a couple hours before I have to jump back in again. And understanding that's a pretty realistic expectation. I have to go homeschool my kids. I can't slough off anymore and just do the play dates like I could when they were younger and be like, it's going to be fine. Now I have to do school every day. Not necessarily for hours on end, but giving them that time and making sure we stay on top of things. And even if I don't want to do it and I'm fighting tooth and nail with my own self internally to do it, just do it anyway. Just force yourself to get up and go mop that sticky, nasty floor because you're going to be happier not walking on the sticky floor. That's, I think, helped me the most in my parenting career and as a mom, staying on top of things, just choosing to do it instead of choosing to be lazy, has made the biggest difference.
Right. Gosh, that little gem about being joyful in the midst of hard times, that's juicy.
It is. I'm sitting here like taking notes.
So what about when you worked? Because so you worked in a doctor's office, right? In a naturopath's office. And you have also had times where you've done a side gig from home, right? So, and those are times when you had a baby at the same time, right? And the kids are still
pretty
schooling.
Much all the time was for a while there.
Until like how old? Okay, so how old's Josie? She's the youngest, right? How old is she?
She turned 2 in August.
She's 2. So that's the longest you've ever had without a baby, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
My
is the first
biggest
time you've
space,
had, yeah, yeah.
my
So
biggest space
what,
is a week shy of 2 years.
a week shy of 2 years. Yeah.
So
Biggest,
she's
my
been
biggest space.
tired and sick and taking
She's
care
had
of
hard
little ones this
pregnancies.
whole time, just to give everybody like a realistic picture.
Not just sick, but some like pretty significant autoimmune disorders within our household and myself also.
That's
Mhm.
right.
So yeah, tired and some very high risk pregnancies. And in those times, we run a tight ship around here. And I like to joke that in those times, it's more like a pirate ship. And there's mutiny aboard, listening to one side, and the captain is locked in the headquarters, right, in his cabin right now. And there's no one at the helm. But we get through and the boat doesn't sink all the way. But sometimes it's like a tight run ship and sometimes it's a little more like a pirate ship. But it's still a ship.
Right. So how, when you are working and doing all those things, I feel like I don't know how moms do it when they're out of the house working. Um, I mean, we work from home, which is hard too. It has its own challenges, but like, what's your advice for working moms, whether in or out of the house, and still trying to keep up with all the things? And a lot of moms, and you probably did feel this sometimes, feel like, dang it, like I'm dropping the ball at home. My kids aren't getting what they need. My house is falling apart. What advice do you have for moms who feel that?
Um, Self-care, taking time for yourself. I feel like as a working mom, it was easier to get that time because I could take my breaks at work and I could go, grab a coffee or go do something. It was actually easier because I was already out of the house. I feel like it's harder as a stay-at-home working mom or a stay-at-home mom to take those breaks. As a stay-at-home working mom, you're kind of used to setting aside a time to do your work, which is hard. But you're used to setting aside time. So it makes it easier to set aside time to also go, okay, I'm going to take 20 minutes and I'm going to go have coffee in the park by myself. I'm going to go drive around and go, right now is the perfect time of year for that. Go look at Christmas lights or go sit and be with a friend. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a lot harder as a mom at home, remembering to take that time out and making sure you're doing, I don't care if it's a 30-minute walk every day or a part-time job working at the local coffee shop, just so you can have some interaction with the rest of the world. And we get a little less stuck within our own selves by remembering there's other people out there. It could be packing up lunches and dropping off to the homeless people around town that are begging for food. Just something small that can help fill you up is so important. So very important.
I agree. I think that moms, that is so like such a critical component of being a mom, is like making sure that you don't lose yourself in all the things, whatever you need to do, and realizing and letting go of things being perfect at home. Cause like for me, I know that like I'll start to feel really stressed out by all the things that are going on at home. And sometimes I really have to sit back and have, and like full awareness, like be really intentionally aware that whatever it is that's stressing me out and weighing me down right now doesn't matter. Like the house isn't going to be perfect. And even if I were to make it like perfect right this second and put aside other things that might ultimately fill my cup more, like for example, I'm just going to use business as an example because that's what's on my mind. What I'm thinking about right now is like, if Crystal and I are working on a big project for Busy Boss Mama, and we're stressing out about getting something done, or this project is taking forever, and we get caught up in all the things at home, ultimately, like over time, it's that pressure and stress and frustration is just going to build up of this project taking forever. Whereas the house, if I can like step back for a moment and say, you know what, like I could clean my house perfect right now, and the kids, like it's still going to be trashed again after dinner. So ultimately, like there wasn't this big thing of productivity that got done, right? But if we were to get this project done, ultimately it's going to lead to like more fulfillment than a short-term gain of like trying to clean up the house right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just
Sometimes that's important, and even hiring outside other moms to come help to clean the house. Because for me,
for sure.
I can't be productive. If my house is crazy, messy, like I can't be productive. I can't
Yeah.
clean. I literally like shut down and just start cleaning. Like I can't not
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where my house is
And
today.
so
'cause
learning-
I've got 6 kids.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we are
learning
doing school
where
days.
that's important. Let's do a certain amount of cleaning. What do I have to clean in order that I can go homeschool? What do I have to do
Oh my
that's
gosh, I
glaring at me
love
so
that.
bad? I do this part. I can then go focus on the other thing I need to focus on, and then come back and do the rest.
Sure. And you've
For
created
me,
one thing.
it's
Yeah, go ahead. For you, it's what?
sticky door handles, like the fridge handles,
Mhm.
and countertops, like flat surfaces. Making sure those are cleaned off makes my house feel so much cleaner. So even if they're just organized into neater piles, and you've seen me do this when I come visit your house,
Yes.
so you
Yes,
know it's a
that's
thing for me.
yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that you've created these things where you realize your triggers of stress. And so you've created habits around those types of things, like the flat surfaces. And that's still something I struggle with so bad. And I think of you so much. Like Lindsay doesn't go to bed until all of her counters are clean in her bed, in her kitchen. Like, and I have junk areas of like all my mail I throw on the counter or whatever. So it's like I have most of my counters clean, but I have these areas. And Lindsay comes over and she's like, you can't do this. Like, it's just fix it.
Yeah.
And then like, just making space for like making space for the habits that are going to make a big difference. Like another thing you do that you taught me is like fill the sink with water. So you might not have time to do all your dishes all the time, but during the day, especially if you're homeschooling, like we don't have time to stop and do a big kitchen clean between and after breakfast and after lunch. But you fill your sink with water, right? And so your counters can still stay clean and you just can throw the dishes in the sink. So just simple things that are centered around your triggers to make things a little bit easier. Like Crystal, you're really good about the evening tidy. And
Yeah. And one thing that I pretty certain I know you do too, Linz, is like baskets. I
Mhm.
set like baskets around like the bottom of the stairs for anything that needs to go up the stairs, and grab your junk on the way up the stairs, or I'm going to clear it off at the end of the night. And it then becomes my stuff for whatever is left there. And so that it can get back up the stairs. But when you're tidying and you go upstairs 20 times, it's not efficient. Like, so like Lindsay has been talking about being efficient. And I think you do that too. Like have a basket. This stuff goes upstairs. This is going to go downstairs. Grab the basket on your way and bring me the dang basket back.
Yeah, we use something similar like that too. Yeah. And it does help. So I have one last question for you. We've kind of like gone long, but dang, like I had a feeling we might talking to Lindsay because she could infuse her like wisdom for a couple hours.
She needs to have her own podcast.
She does need to have her own podcast.
I've got so much going on. Oh my gosh. Like that just like stress level just went, whoo, no. I can't do that on my own.
We'll just have you on ours then.
Happy to come back for this. Sounds great.
I will. So I have this. I'm going to throw this at you because I didn't give you preparation for this. When you have people say, I could never fill in the blank. So as we all have big families, me and Crystal have a big family as it is with 6 kids. You're doubled that. So all the things we hear. I could never have that many kids. I could never homeschool. I could never this. I could never that. What do you say to that?
Some people deserve a really snarky comment, and they get it, depending on my mood. As you both know, I can do that.
Yes.
And some people, I'm like, I agree, you probably couldn't. Like, it's probably a better idea that you don't. No, but for real. So I think that it's about priority. You're right. You can't do it if you prioritize the Louis Vuitton purse and your trips to Barbados and your wanting your house perfectly clean. You're right. You can't, because you have to learn to let things go. Kids are not expensive, lifestyles are. That
Oh,
was
wow, I love
a
that.
little tidbit from Ellie from ever ago, by the way.
Wow.
Kids are not expensive, lifestyles are. And if you're going to buy them designer clothes and you're expecting to have this perfect household, you're not going to achieve it unless you're a multimillionaire. Can you do lots of kids? Yes, but you've got to really let go of what you think it's needed to make that happen. Because within their ideals, they're probably correct. Because big houses, as you guys know, don't work in the way most people think they do. Like you were saying, it's not what they think it is, right?
Yeah.
Like big homes are not this chaotic mess. Some are, but I don't think that's the case of the majority. And we all know a lot of large homeschool moms, large homeschooling families.
Mhm.
And it's just not what they think it is. So they're right. If raising a large family was what their ideal was, then they're correct. You can't do it that way. And so that's kind of what I tell people is you got to get out of your own head. Like it's not what you think it is. Come see how I do me, and how I do us, and maybe it'll change your mind.
Yeah. Well, and on that also, I think there's people get this idea that like you didn't have 12 kids thrown in your lap at once. I'm like, for the most part, I got them one at a time. Sometimes you get them two at a time. It doesn't, most people don't have 8 kids at one time. The bulk of people don't. And I'm like, and you adjust, just like humans are excellent at adapting. We're excellent at adapting. So
We are. And especially when you have your priorities right, especially when you realize like, no, I can't, but God can. And
yeah.
I mean, as homeschooling moms, we hear this like a lot about homeschooling. I could never do that. I could never, well, neither can I on my own.
No.
But when you do have your priorities right and you make a decision, then you're given the grace to deal with it. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but patience isn't just like beamed down on us. Like if you don't have lots of opportunities for patience in your life, you don't learn it, you know? So, I mean, we all know if we've had like, if you have too many breaks as a mom, then it's makes things even harder when you get back because you're like, dang it. Like you kind of like you're more patient the more practice you have during the day, right? Like everybody does need a break, but if you have too much of it, then you just can't stand being around your kids either. So,
yeah.
I think that we need to be grace, like give ourselves grace and realize like, well, you can do a lot more than you realize if you are prayerful and you're seeking that help and guidance, but allowing yourself to grow in virtue. It's just like a muscle, you know?
Yeah. Virtue is, I heard it said that virtue is really good habits practiced over and over and over, which I mean, as Catholics, we all see virtue as gifts from the Holy Spirit, but we also know that when you pray for a gift such as patience, a lot of times you just get a lot of opportunities to practice a good habit.
Yes, it's
like
so true.
You get pregnant. Then you
disagree
pray
with
for
you. I
humility
think
and get
that
baby
God
5.
gives us. No, I disagree. I think that God gives us those prompts to pray for those virtues because those trials are coming no matter what. And if we pray for those virtues and are willing to accept the challenges, then we get grace through it. Whereas not having the opportunity to have the grace built up ahead of time. So I disagree that if we pray for like humility, oh, well, then I'm not ready to pray for the litany of humility because if I do that, then I'm going to get all these chances to practice it. Well, those chances are coming no matter what. So pray the litany so that you get the graces to handle those moments.
That's a great interpretation also. And actually, I have been praying the litany.
Good job.
That's a good one. That's awesome advice. That's a really good point of view. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts?
I think we should bring Lindsay on again sometime.
Heck
That
yeah.
was my final thought.
I'm all for it.
Are you game?
I think the moms
Okay.
out there are absolutely game. I think the moms out there need to just figure out how it works for them and learn to be maybe a little more efficient than they were the day before and
I love that.
move forward.
Yeah.
And don't.
I love that. Not comparing to other moms. Find out what works for you. I love that about you, Lindsay. And I feel like it's been like you've gone more and more like over every years of being a mom. You're just like, yeah, we don't have it figured out. Everybody has to figure out their own way, and what works for me may not work for you. And it's just so really encouraging to hear that, especially in our age of social media. I feel like seeing everybody's like what looks to be perfect life on social media, it just drives this comparison of feeling like crap about ourselves. Like there's great ideas out there, but then it's like, oh man, I'm like, I just could never be like her. And it is just like, let's find something that works for you and try to stick with it and create habits that help you to function better in your own life. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Like, I know we all three of us probably have our kids like that have tried beating down the door here a couple times and are fighting in the other room, or they're totally loving that we're doing this because they get to shirk school for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here. I know, Crystal, your kids are 6, so they're like
They're dying
miserable,
on the couch
but
downstairs.
mm-hmm.
I do want to say one final thing is that a suggestion for all the moms out there, all the especially younger moms, find a mom like Lindsay, an older mom that you can really respect, that has their life going the way that you would like yours to go, and make friends with them. And
Yes.
other moms have so much wisdom that, you know, especially as women, we like to share. We want to see our fellow women succeed. And so go and find another mom. Like Lindsay is an incredible source of information. Go find yourself a Lindsay, whether she has, you know, 2 kids and seem like she has it together. You know, find somebody that you can really that you admire, and you can emulate their parenting style if that's, you know, what you want to be in your family, and talk to her and figure it out. You don't have to, as a young mom, don't do it on your own. Find another dang mom.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've always been blessed to have older moms in my life. When I say older, we should say more experience, because Lindsay's younger than me.
Yeah, Lindsay's not older. And
but yeah, I've
You see
always
the
been.
grace?
You look so good. I feel like that's one area of my life that I feel like I've been so blessed, is to have more experienced mom, because I've always been like the youngest in the group of my mom friends, and so they can help me. And whereas when all you hang out with is like moms your age with littles your kids' age, which is helpful too, don't get me wrong, like it does kind of get like where you're kind of all in like the tornado together. You know, these moms that have more experience are kind of on the outside. They know what it's like to be on the inside, but they've come out the other end. And it is invaluable to. And also, I think as moms with older kids, we realize like our teenagers are not old enough yet to think that we know anything. So we are more than happy to give our advice to young moms who actually want to listen.
yes, because our teenagers think that mom doesn't know what she's talking about, even when she's correcting assignments and going, you can see that the answer's not right there. That's not a full sentence over here. And they're like, oh.
Yes. Yeah. We get the like teenagers thinking that we really don't know anything. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, we'll let you go. I know you've got a lot of kids that are probably like, Mom, where are you? Thank you so much. You're the best. It was super fun talking.
Bye, guys.
Bye.